otherwise does anyone remote never That's one I just tried. Could be this, but let's try that one.
I think the one you tried was the one on the very bottom.
I did that one too, but
I was just like to tap the microphone for testing the.
you know what? Maybe
This is always a problem.
they did switch this to any and this to Mike. I wonder if we have to be on the
Well, it worked.
That makes sense.
right there.
Yeah.
So now let me mute and make sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Mike Wickers, Mayor of Cottonwood Heights, and this is the business meeting for the Cottonwood Heights City Council for February 7th, 2023. I have asked our Record, Culture, and HR Development Department Director, Paula Melgar, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Paula. Item 3 is a citizen comment period. I do not currently have any. Oh, there we go. A citizen comment period. This is a time for our citizens to address the council on whatever matters that they desire. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Please review the public comment procedures on the last page of our agenda. If you haven't filled out a speaker card, please do so and a staff member can get it to me. When making comments, we request that you were speaking to the microphone so that we can hear, so your name can be, or so that your comments can be recorded. You give your name, and that you avoid insulting language or comments. The audience should also avoid expressions of support or disagreement. The council is here to listen, but you shouldn't expect to engage in a back and forth dialogue. If you do have questions, the staff will respond to you within a few business days. So the first person to come up to the stand would be Diane Polson.
My comments are on the ranked choice voting, and where it might work in other cities, I feel it did not work for Cottonwood Heights. We had many people that were very confused as to how it was going to work, or how it needed to work. And I personally felt like my vote did not count in this last election. It's meant to be bipartisan until it turns into bipartisan. And ours turned into bipartisan, and was not a good deal. Not for the people running and not for the city itself. It's hard sometimes to teach an old dog new tricks, and there's many of us in Cottonwood Heights that are old. I consider myself in that same spot, and you know one way of voting, you know one way an election's supposed to go, and that's what you expect. And when you get everything all confused, you don't have as good a voting system. It doesn't work out. It's never been meant to be a shortcut, but this was a short out because the whole thing shorted out. It did not work well. It did not work right. And in my opinion, not good for the people in Cottonwood Heights. And I feel like if the constituent is not, if the person that's running is not running with the citizens in mind on how they would vote, he should not be running. It should not be an individual agenda as to how you want things to work. And so in my opinion, it didn't work for Cottonwood Heights. Maybe other places it did, but it's not a good fit here. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, for your comments. Next up is David Johnson.
Hey there. I'm David Johnson. I don't have anything too profound to say or taking a position on any issue. I'm on Cavalier Drive in District 2. I've been a cyclist in Utah for many, many years. And so, I don't especially care for, riding on chip sealed roads and things like that. It's never a lot of fun. So I'm just here to say that this issue is important to me and how we take care of our roads is important. I watched the presentation from the city engineer earlier today, and I appreciate that. And I do appreciate all the work that goes into taking care of our roads. Makes it much more pleasant for me to ride on than in other places. I brought my daughter with me. That's Alyssa. She's a cyclist with me, and she rides all over the city. We ride up the steepest hills in the city whenever we can. Right, Alyssa? That's right. So if I guess what I would like to comment is I understand a lot of the cost efficiencies with chip sealing and why we take care of our roads that way and why we try to maintain them that way. If there's any extra effort that can be paid to using finer grained aggregate, maybe cape seal methods, anything other than a straight chip seal, that seems like it would be interesting to me and appreciate. So thank you. Appreciate your listening.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your comments too. And Alyssa, for coming. This cannot be super exciting for any, maybe it is. Next up, we have Brian Murdoch.
Hi, this makes me nervous, so I'm going to read a little bit. Sorry. My name is Brian Murdoch. I live in District 2. Last September, the city had a layer of tar and gravel applied on top of a few roads here in town: Danish Road, 30th East, Hollow Mill Drive, and possibly some others. This treatment is called chip seal, for those that don't know. It is sold as a low-cost maintenance solution for our roads, but from everything I've observed, it does more harm than good. It leaves a mess of gravel on the road, shoulders, gutters, and sidewalks for months or even years after it has been done. People will try to argue that's not the case, but anyone can travel down Danish Road right now, 4 months after the job was done, and see how much gravel is still there in the gutters and sidewalks. I have documented this on a website, cottonwoodheightsroads.com. Aside from the gravel mess, chip seal also takes a smooth road and makes it much rougher. This leads to more tire wear, more noise, worse gas mileage, and more severe injury to anyone that falls on it. Last time 27th East was chip sealed, my son and also a friend of mine in separate accidents slid on the gravel, fell on the road, and were severely injured. I brought this up back in September, and a couple city council members responded to me saying that we just can't afford to do anything other than chip seal. I asked Matt Ship, our engineer, to do a more detailed cost comparison than he did at that city council meeting. And he produced something that showed many different maintenance options in addition to chip seal being done on our road. And that led me to believe that we could simply leave out chip seal and do those others. And it's something that I would really urge the city council to look into. I've started a petition, and we now have 402 signatures on that, people that are against chip seal. And I would urge you to pay close attention to that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mike Hansen.
Had to burn up after work. I was sitting at my desk listening to a work session today, and well, the first items on the agenda was the ranked choice one. And I've reached out to Councilman Newell Monday night. I actually went up to the hearing on HB 171 and ended up giving comment in that hearing. And I had some interesting takeaways that came from there. But interestingly enough, I was making notes as I heard each of you in the deliberation over what this is. And I went up there because I ran as a candidate in both methods. And I get ranked choice voting methodology. I actually kind of think it's cool. My biggest issue I have with it is that hands down, it is more complicated. And when we see things that become more complicated, especially in our rights to vote, it becomes a little concerning. People are critical of the voting process and the tabulating process right now. Now we end up with it in another avenue, and that's through the ranked choice. Some of the things that kind of really brought to my heart today was just the fact that we're not talking about what the voters are looking at. We're looking at the method and what is it doing? What's the benefit that it brings to our city? As a candidate in both, I spent more money on ranked choice as a candidate, even though it was a shorter election period. It just seems like citizens have had plenty of times to comment on it. I spent a majority of my campaign in preaching and teaching the method. The folks at Ranked Choice Utah are great. They provided great materials. They have great ways of educating us, but some people still were ignorant to want to learn that. Now, this is a trial. And this trial is to collect data, as Council Burrell talked about. They need to let the thing run its course and collect the data. However, there's a big thing missing. You can't collect all the data on it because we have protected votes. And if I'm wrong on that, I'd like to know, but I just see that there's just no way to fully collect it. I look at it this way. It ran its course in our city. We did a good job with it. It was strongly delayed. I spent tons of time teaching people. I fielded so many calls and trying to help people understand the system. And I don't disagree with the method. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike it because I don't like it. Representative Malloy, that was on the committee, said one thing. I thought this was really pretty interesting. First thing he did say is, he says, I don't like ranked choice voting. But what I don't like is this HB sitting in front of us that's taking away local control. That's from a state level. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. But when we have local control because we have the ability for citizens to reach out to our council and to talk to them and to share their voices with us. I'd like to see the politics out of our voting method and put voting back into our voting method, that one that agrees with the citizens that are voting, as opposed to those that are cracking the numbers and trying to think that this is a neat and nifty process. It is a neat and nifty process in the caucus level, on business levels and those type of things, but is part of an election, especially in a municipality. I am not in favor of it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that as well. I do not see anybody's hand up online. I don't have any other cards. Come on up.
I can vouch for this character, Mark Johnson.
Yes, I do have a card there. I'm not sure why I didn't make it up to you, but anyway, I guess I'm representing myself, my daughter, and Pam Brown and others that may be I've talked to over this last week or so about this. So my name is Mark Johnson. I live on Siesta. I'm here to talk about the riparian part of the SLES ordinance. This is something that could potentially have a very profound impact on my family, on us, and on my neighbors in a very negative way. And so I'd like to just give you a few moments of concern about this. We bought our home about almost 25 years ago, before Cottonwood Heights was a city. And at that time, if we didn't have a 20% down, we'd have to pay mortgage insurance, and we had to buy flood insurance. We had to buy all these things, but the one thing that would devalue our property more than anything else is if we had to sell it and the new owner couldn't put the home of their choice on our property. And my understanding is that the title to our land, to our home, would be legally encumbered by the city government here, that there would be all kinds of uncertainty about whether they could build their home. There's several different environmental regulations that would have to be considered. And if you think about when you buy a home, there's like a race. You're going to the bank, you're trying to get a loan, trying to get a mortgage, all these things are happening. And now on top of that, you got the uncertainty of whether or not you could even build what you want to build. It's not going to happen. It put a tremendous pall on our neighborhood. Ours is one of the older homes. And so there's a lot of new homes that have gone in and they're, I guess, a little bit protected that way. Ours would not be, and there's several others, and it would just make it hard for any of us to sell our homes. And so I guess it begs the question, do we need to have city insurance? If we had to have flood insurance and we had to have mortgage insurance, why didn't we have to have city insurance to help protect us from this sort of an encroachment on our rights? If you take away our property rights, you might as well just take away our property, because we're still paying taxes on it. We're still doing everything we can to contribute in a meaningful way to being good citizens in the community, but we just don't have options anymore. I did attend the meeting before this, and sounds like there's some thought that we could maybe reduce our some of the restrictions for fertilizing our yard and a few of those things, but being able to take care of our trees and our vegetation. But 50 feet is a lot of feet, and most of the yards are not would not be the 25-foot barrier, be 50 foot. At least they're all 1 acre yards up and down the street. I'm not asking this for 2 minutes more, so I can.
You can finish your.
Yeah, okay. So if I guess I think that, this might be a little bit overly simplistic, but if we don't really have the rights to our property, and why have the property? And if we live next to an airport that was wanting to be expanded, then have to do eminent domain to get those rights. And so I looked at what eminent domain might mean, with this, and basically the Constitution says that people have the right to property, and that the property must be taken. If the property has to be taken, it has to be taken for a public use, which is what you're doing. The state must pay just compensation in exchange for the property, and no person must be deprived of his or her property without due process of law. So I looked to see what the Utah State Legislature said, and in Utah Code Section 78B6-501, effective May 5th, 2021, it basically says that eminent domain applies to several of these things, and including reservoirs, canals, aqueducts, flumes, ditches, or pipes for conducting water or sewage, including to or from a development for the use of inhabitants of any county, city, or town, or for the draining of any county, city, or town. and that the raising of the banks of streams, removing obstructions from streams and widening or deepening and straightening their channels also pertains to that. So I don't think we're looking at a simple city ordinance. I think we're looking at eminent domain for those of us who would be tremendously impacted by this. My feeling is that this ship sailed a long time ago. People have been buying these properties for 50 years. We've been making financial decisions on them. I actually took out a second mortgage on ours so I could start a business in here. And now to have to think of the property value going down considerably because the next owner wouldn't be able to have the flexibility to do what they would need to with it. It would be a terrible thing for my family. And I think it'd be a terrible thing for a lot of people up and down my street. And another thing I would just say, I've been out talking to people. I didn't think to invite them here tonight, but they'll be coming to the town hall meeting next week. And there's almost nobody that knows about this that would be impacted by this. And I know that there's been some statement that minimum reporting has been done. Nobody seems to know about it. And when they find out about it, they're really concerned. And so anyway, my feeling is that there's a lot of good thought and a lot of good intention into these sort of things, but this is fundamentally misguided because this ship sailed a long time ago. And I just ask you to maybe ditch this ordinance and just let us get back to living in peace in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Nothing else, Tim? Okay. Great. With that, I will close the citizen comment period. Item 4.0 is a public comment period on 4.1, which is a PDD-2 text amendment to the northern gravel pit. I'm going to actually have our Community and Economic Director, Mike Johnson, give us a little bit of background on this before we go into the public comment period.
Thank you, Mayor. This up here. This is a zoning text amendment. This has come in from an outside applicant. This is not city initiated for an update to the PDD-2 ordinance. And that ordinance, just very quickly, is the site-specific ordinance that was approved and entitles the northern 20-acre gravel pit parcel. This came through this full public process a couple of years ago. It approved a mixed-use development there, consisting of apartments and future condos and some retail mixed-use buildings. Part of that ordinance required some site scoping, geological hazard studies and geotechnical engineering work to analyze all the different hazards on the site. Some of that was done initially, and then there were requirements built in that as each building was designed, that site-specific studies had to be done. So the developer has begun doing that. What was discovered is that one of the anticipated fault lines was located at a slightly different angle than it was originally anticipated. The result of that is it cut through the corner of one of the buildings that was originally approved, resulting in a reduction in footprint size and a loss of about 25 units in that building and a relocated pool amenity. There's some massing there. I'll just skip through that. The reason this is in front of the council tonight is the ordinance that entitled this use included this line here, everything that's not in red. Basically, that states material changes to this ordinance based on hazard studies or any other analysis require a full amendment to that, the planned development district area, which would require this to go back to planning commission, to city council, to neighborhood meetings, et cetera. The term material changes is never defined anywhere, not in this ordinance or in the city code elsewhere. So the applicant made a request to modify the text of that code to include clarification that for the purposes of this section, a change resulting in a decrease of less than 10% of the unit count, density, building height, massing, or footprint is not considered material. Essentially, if through engineering and design, a building was made smaller or less intense by less than 10%, that could be approved administratively just through the typical permit review. Staff's findings on this is that they are accurate material changes, not defined anywhere that we would normally look for that term in the city code. Limiting material change to a maximum reduction of 10% limits the scope and impact of anything that this would affect. An increase in intensity, so building getting taller or bigger still has to go through the full public process. This only applies to unit count, density, height, basically private building size. This does not apply to the public spaces, the trails, the courtyards, anything like that. And then even a significant reduction, a complete loss of building would also need to come back through that full public process. So this allows minor and reasonable flexibility that arises in the typical building design and engineering process. The Planning Commission held public comment in mid-January. They unanimously recommended approval with these 4 conditions here, which are basically just cleanup to make sure that the intent of the ordinance is exactly how it reads. So I won't read through those, but I'm happy to answer any questions. There was no public comment received at Planning Commission. So we'll take public comment tonight, and then this would be scheduled for action probably at the next meeting.
Questions, comments from the council at all on this? Thank you, Mike. Are there any public comments to this PD2 text amendment? Hearing none, I will close the public comment period for this item. Okay, we have 2 legislative items to consider this evening, beginning with item 5.1, consideration of ordinance 393. Which is approving an amendment to the 2022-2023 budget. We discussed this item earlier in our work session. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve ordinance 393.
I'll make that motion to approve ordinance 393.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Newell and a second from Councilmember Peterson. Final questions, comments? We'll now call for the vote. Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay, next is we have item 5.2, consideration of resolution 2023-08, adopting an amended and restated internal policies for the Cottonwood Heights City Council. We also discussed this item in our work session earlier. Any other questions or comments from the council on this item?
I would just comment that I thought it was improvements that make us even more efficient and effective, and I feel really good about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Burrell. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2023-08, adopting amended and restated internal policies for the Cottonwood Heights City Council.
I will motion to approve the resolution 2023-08.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Burrell and a second from Councilmember Newell. Final questions, comments? Now call for the vote. Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
Councilmember Newell.
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Okay, last on our agenda this evening, and we need to approve our consent calendar. The consent calendar tonight includes meeting minutes from January 3rd, our work session and business meeting. Also for our council meetings on January 17th, which includes the same, along with a CDR meeting on January 17th and 26th. I would entertain a motion to approve our consent calendar.
I move to approve our consent calendar, Mayor. Can I second it too?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That does it for this evening. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
That's why I showed up with the Senate.
Everybody's being shy about it.